welcome to Round 3 Reviews and back with another Hong Kong content review, continuing with the Bruce Lee's Greatest Hits kind of review series. First time viewing most of these films on the box set edition. This is from the Criterion box set, which features The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, The Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, and ending with The Game of Death. It also features The Game of Death 2, which I think is a weird kind of sequel without Bruce Lee. I don't know what's going on with that. I'll have to find out when we get to it. But this edition is really fantastic from Criterion. Of course, there is the glorious Arrow box edition coming out in a couple of months, which a lot of people are very excited for. In fact, new extended cuts, 4K transfers, and might even top this edition. But for the purpose of these reviews, watching these for the very first time in brand new 2K scans and glorious kind of high definition with lots of brand new extras, audio commentary, behind the scenes, archival extras, this is a really nice edition from Criterion and definitely something that shouldn't be looked over. I can see a lot of these being on eBay at the moment. People are definitely jumping on the bandwagon for the Arrow edition, which is understandable if you're a big fan of the films and want to see them in brand new kind of 4K editions and exclusive extras that you never got a chance to see compared to this release. It's definitely an interesting kind of battle between which version is better, but I think for this definitely suits me quite nicely for sure, and gives me an opportunity to talk about these films in the best possible way, seeing these films in the best possible format that I can up to this current point. Today we'll be talking about Fist of Fury, that has spawned off multiple different sequels. Fist of Fury 2, 3, New Fist of Fury with Jackie Chan, also directed by Lo Wei as mentioned in my last review, also from the remake Fist of Legends with Jet Li, the remake or reimagining. There are so many different kind of inspired kind of material spawned from this movie, and I was very, very excited to see what this movie had to offer. So let's, without further ado, let's check out Fist of Fury. Fist of Fury was released in 1972, 1 year after The Big Boss, with returning director Lo Wei back on the directing seat. This would conclude Bruce Lee's contract deal with Raymond Chung under Golden Harvest, which later would form a company with him, going 50-50 and making kind of big budget projects under his name, being the fact that The Big Boss and this film was making a lot of money in Hong Kong cinemas, breaking all sorts of records and really kind of demonstrating a whole new kind of attitude, a whole new flavour to kind of Hong Kong cinema. And you can definitely tell why, from the story to the kind of Bruce Lee being the frontman, being the actual lead of this film, being the actual action hero, bringing a whole new level of attitude and badassery and just kind of this kind of kick-ass kind of nature that he didn't get really a chance to do much as I would have liked him to in The Big Boss. The Big Boss was a kind of demo reel, if anything. This one was his first leading proper big action role, him going full force, this time bringing a much more depth character, bringing a better performance, having a bit more of a real motivation, definitely challenging those conventions a little bit more. This time around he's definitely having a lot more fun. He has a love interest, as it actually feels like an actual love interest, as better kind of handled compared to the first one. This time having a bit more of a comedy edge as well in a weird way. He's definitely playing Agent 47, Master in Disguise, where he's playing an old man, playing an electrician. He's hammering up a little bit in places. He's definitely experimenting, and I feel like he has a bit more say in this. Funny as well, because I definitely think he's the most angriest leading kind of Hong Kong actor that I've seen up to this point. From a lot of the movies that I have seen, he's just constantly very, very angry. He's holding back the fury, he's holding back the furious nature of his kind of scenario or his situation that he's in. And this makes a lot more sense, obviously, going behind the scenes of the film and him as an actual real life person, like Bruce Lee, who he was, and his frustrations with kind of like, Hollywood, and his experience with playing with the Green Hornet and doing a few cameos and not getting kind of leading kind of performances within TV shows or movies, coming back to kind of Hong Kong, doing kind of essentially lower budget kind of movies for less money, still trying to kind of prove himself with the action moments. They're all the action set pieces involving Bruce Lee himself. He actually choreograted, he actually kind of put together. The story for Fist of Fury is quite simple. You've got two rival schools. you've got the Japanese influence that have kind of taken over this kind of little town, and there's definitely some sort of national kind of racism going on in the sense, you know, Japanese are having their influence all over this kind of location. There's signs of some of the subordinates, even some of the people that, like the police force, or even some of the people that the Japanese have under their wing, they're treated like dogs in the sense, you know, they are second-class citizens, they are nothing, and we need to kind of squash them and their ideals and their thinking, and, you know, basically they act like bullies in the sense, you know, they think they are better in the sense of martial arts, in the sense of their culture. And we've seen this before with the IP Man movies, especially within the remake of Fist of Legends, which definitely touches upon those ideas a lot more so. And I think for 1972 definitely was a kind of interesting kind of talking point within a culture in a time where kind of Japanese and China were definitely at each other in terms of, you know, World War II, and, you know, their kind of influence over kind of what was being said and what was being done. And as in typical Hong Kong fashion, the bad guys made the first move, they provoke them, they're kind of taking the piss out of them in a sense, and, you know, that this leads to Bruce Lee basically going, okay, I'm going to basically kick the shit out of your students, I'm going to mock you, I'm going to, you know, make an example of you, and this leads to an all-out kind of back and forth kind of, you know, confrontation between the two rival schools. And obviously there's some kind of conspiracy going on with their kind of master being poisoned, you know, from a kind of assassination kind of attempt, and this leads to Bruce Lee being even more angry and even more kind of furious, and his kind of, you know, investigation of what was going on and who has killed his master. And, you know, there is some kind of political kind of, you know, agenda going on also alongside it. And Bruce Lee plays a character called Chen Zhen, or Chen Zhen, how you pronounce it. And this character has actually been portrayed quite a few times now within different types of movies, with you know, Donnie Yen playing him as well, and obviously Jet Li, obviously within the remake. This character is definitely very significant within a lot of other material. But he's the guy who's investigating, he's the guy who is basically going to get shit done. And a lot of the other characters, the supporting characters in the films, they are just there to discuss the consequences of what he is doing, and the nature of what's going on, the pressures that's going on within kind of, you know, Hong Kong during that kind of time. And I think it's both a good thing and a bad thing for the film itself. I think the film starts off really, really strong. I think, you know, straight out the gate, it definitely kind of hits the nail on the head, and I think it slowly starts to get a bit kind of dull, and I hate to say that yet again within another Hong Kong movie, especially within a Bruce Lee movie, that I kind of want to jump in. I definitely think this time around the film is a lot stronger. I think the story's better, I think the characters are better, I think the direction is a lot stronger as well, and I like the investigation aspects, and it kind of adds some really good cool moments. But I do think there's a lot of sluggish kind of pacing. I definitely think there's a lot of too much talking and regurgitation of the same kind of dialogue, or, you know, talking about the same scene that just happened 5 minutes ago. It's not needed, and there's these characters just walking around or sitting around, and there's just kind of, you know, it adds to the pressure of what's going on. I like the build-up of what's kind of the political nature of, or the police force, you know, and the idea of, you know, Japanese accusing them that Chinese look after Chinese, and it's like, okay, that you've talked about these kind of talking points now for the past, you know, hour of the movie. Can you get on with the rest of the film, please? Can you actually demonstrate? I think there's a little bit too much kind of overstretched out material. I think there's a little bit too much footage to kind of just paste together. It's practically a 2-hour film, and it definitely could benefit with half an hour of the film being cut. I could tell there's an hour and a half movie, or maybe an hour and, hour and 40-minute movie, tight movie that you can really make and really kind of nail it in. And I think they could have played upon some of the more stronger aspects, that is Bruce Lee, where he actually just show up what he actually is, because he just definitely just vanished for good portions of the film. He's definitely in there for the good first half an hour, and then he's on the run, he's kind of doing the investigation aspects. And when you get the Bruce Lee stuff, I think it's really strong and really a lot of scheming from the Japanese going on in the film, where they want to take out this kind of school, and because they have the power. And very similar to the Big Boss, he definitely takes out loads and loads of people. He kills people in various kind of funny and kind of ridiculous kind of fashions. He definitely has way overpowering super strength in a lot of moments, and he's definitely just full on going crazy a lot of the kind of moments. He definitely has some great fight scenes with this Russian character, and his fight scene with the big boss, the Japanese boss at the end of the film, is pretty awesome and pretty glorious as well. See, one of the things I did really like in the box set edition, which definitely touched upon something that I've noticed a lot within kind of 70s, 80s, definitely been going to the late 80s kind of movies, this idea of whether you're a bad guy, whether you're a good guy, you're going to face two forms of justice. You're going to go to jail for the rest of your life, or you're going to be killed. No way that any hero is going to get away with killing lots and lots of people without facing some form of consequences. And I think that's quite fascinating, that the big boss, he's arrested, and this film he is executed at the end of the film. And this is something that has been kind of added upon a lot of different types of Hong Kong movies that I've seen over the kind of past couple of years or so, especially recently with the recent kind of 88 film editions and Eureka edition films, and this idea of, you know, there has to be form of justice somewhere, you know, no one gets away with anything, and I think that's quite fascinating. I think they use it really effectively in this film compared to what they did maybe with The Big Boss and some of the other films. This idea that he's going to sacrifice himself to kind of save the school, he's going to, you know, take action, take responsibility for the actions that he has caused by kind of provoking them even further and taking them. But he has defended his school, he's defended his honour, and he has done what he has set out to do, and how he's going to face the firing squad in a blaze of glory in the same. Overall, my first impressions on first time viewing Fist of Fury, I think it's pretty solid. I think it's a pretty good film overall kind of thing. I don't think it's a perfect film. I do think there is some flaws with it, with some pacing issues, as mentioned within the second act. I definitely think there's a separation between Bruce Lee and the rest of the cast for a good portion of the film. I don't know if that was deliberate or not. However, I do think there's some really strong points to be made of that, with the idea of consequences while Bruce Lee's going around doing his investigations, hanging people in the streets and playing Master of Disguise and doing his usual kind of solo kind of mission against the bad guys, which is all glorious, and his fights are great, and he definitely flashes out his character a lot better this time around compared to what he did in the first movie with The Big Boss. I definitely think he has a lot more range this time around. I think he's a stronger performer. I think and the rest of the supporting cast do a good job of kind of having that discussion piece, having that kind of pressure of kind of the Japanese influence and the political nature of what's going on during that kind of time. And I definitely think it all comes to a nice overall conclusion with, you know, Bruce Lee sacrificing himself at the end. I definitely think it's a good blueprint movie for a lot of other movies, and definitely during that kind of zeitgeist during the early 70s, with a lot of other movies kind of touching upon those kind of same ideas of being the kind of the outsider, being the kind of the guy who just wants to live the ordinary life, who just wants to be a nice happy person and, you know, have a nice kind of school and a master, but no, there's always going to be some bully around the corner who's going to take me down, and I got to take them down first. But by doing so, corrupting yourself and maybe going against your morals, going against your values, and, you know, upsetting or maybe the people facing the consequences alongside that, down to your decisions you make. And that's something I always find quite fascinating about a lot of Hong Kong movies, you know, whether it's the more typical kind of, you know, revenge movies, or whether it's the more kind of talking piece ones kind of thing. And this is something that I think is explored a lot within the early 70s, especially within the remake Fist of Legend, which really dives into something along those lines about the idea of honor and respect, and just the ideas of duty and, you know, being controlled by or being influenced by power. Or I definitely feel this one's a good step in the right direction for Bruce Lee. I definitely think this is definitely a lot more of a stronger movie compared to The Big Boss, and I don't think it's a perfect film by any means. I definitely appreciate its value. I definitely appreciate its kind of, you know, origin points kind of thing, and that behind the scenes nature of what was going on with Bruce Lee at that time. And I definitely think it's a good step in the right direction. I don't think it's a hallelujah kind of thing. I don't think it's a slam dunk for me personally, but I did enjoy my time watching this one compared to the Big Boss, and I definitely would recommend this one, guys. That's been my thoughts and opinions on Fist of Fury, guys. Please comment down below. What are your thoughts and opinions on the sequels, the spin-offs, the remake? What are your thoughts on this movie in general? What are your thoughts on the themes of this film I was trying to go for? Do you agree with any kind of points that I've made or disagree? I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions, guys. Please comment down below. So in the meantime, and for reviews,